Welcome to the Thrive Today podcast. Guess what? We hit a huge milestone, 100 episodes.
Come on.
Isn't that awesome?
Come on.
Well, and I think about it as 100 conversations to coach, challenge, and champion women. I would love to know what this means to you. I mean, it also speaks to the longevity of Thrive, how long we've been at this, right?
Just a minute or two. I mean, it really, I celebrate it because it just shows me how important it is to serve this amazing group of women. And what amazes me is how far this message has traveled and, all over the world. And somehow my vision wasn't quite that large to begin with. I think I failed to appreciate what this could actually do. And so to me, the idea of adding value to you girls and guys. I know we
do have some men who listen. That's awesome.
Fine. Join the club, guys. But that is really meaningful to me.
Yeah. Well, we want to take a moment to say thank you. Whether you're listening for the very first time or you've listened to all 100 episodes, thank you so much for joining us. This has been so fun, and it's so encouraging to know that you guys are listening from all over the world.
Absolutely.
Well, we thought we'd celebrate by obviously having our founder, Colleen Rouse, with us as we talk about a really important topic today. We're going to dive into culture, and that is such a powerful topic. Again, oftentimes people don't know what it means or how to put their finger on it, but they do know what culture feels like. And you feel when you're in an incredible culture, and you feel when things are tense or tight or there's something kind of missing. And so we're going to dive in on our 100th episode, and we're going to dig into this idea of culture. How do we actually create environments and spaces that have the right culture? And then how do we cultivate the culture we want? So dive in with us, and let's get kicked off by just talking about. Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit. You talk a lot to people about how organizations specifically can endure challenges. I mean, we have looked at the landscape today. It is tough between tariffs and some of the economic challenges that are faced. And there are some essential qualities that leaders have to have, some resiliency that leaders have to have in order to bring about the right culture and to be creating a strong culture, even in times when times are tough or lean. I want to talk to you a little bit about how you think about that holistically.
Well, if you ever saw The Devil Wears Prada, do you remember what happened when she was about to enter the room and everybody's scrambling and there's this whole scene of people running and getting in their places and getting things in order. And that's not the kind of leader that we want to be. Okay, granted, there's no one like her and she's amazing. However, you see the tension, and people don't do well operating in a spirit where there's high tension, where there's a question mark.
Yeah.
We want to do our best to replace the question mark with an exclamation point. In fact, this is why, if you notice, our icon for Thrive is an exclamation point, because we believe in thriving. We believe in creating vitality. And so I think it's important. What makes us resilient as leaders is understanding our role. And our role is to add value. What I love about that, it just kind of levels our thinking, and it helps us to walk in with a spirit of humility. And if there's anything that's going to set health in a culture, it's when the leader carries humility.
Wow. Well, I feel like in order to carry humility, you can't walk in the imposter syndrome. You have to know your identity. You have to know who you are. You have to know why you exist in that room. You talk so much about knowing why you're at the table, the value that you bring. When I work with leaders, the first thing I ask them is like, what is your personal purpose statement for why you exist and what you're doing? And a lot of times they look at me with a blank stare.
Even have one.
That's right. They usually don't, but you talk so much from living from a place of identity and purpose. And once we understand that, we come into the room ready to give out not to
Yes.
take, right? When we don't know our identity, we walk into a room needing approval, needing to take something from the people in the room. But when we walk in knowing who we are, we're ready to give. And I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, and I have said this mantra before, I have nothing to prove, I have everything to give.
Yeah.
And what it does is we aren't fighting for something. We understand what we've been given and we stand in what we've been given and we operate from a place of centeredness, a place of peace. And it changes the dynamic that we create around us.
Yes. Yeah. You know, let's talk about talent. I think many organizations struggle to not only retain but keep really good talent and actually find good people. And a lot of that, let's be honest, your reputation precedes you, right? So if your
Yeah.
organization is one that is known for treating people well, that reputation will precede you. If you're known for one that is kind of constantly cranking out people and people are coming in and out like a revolving door, your reputation also precedes you. So when we think about how to make people feel valued and engaged for the long term, what are some of the ways that you think about that?
Well, what's interesting is a lot of employers don't even understand why someone would leave or someone would stay.
Mm.
And this McKinsey report came out that identified two main reasons why people leave. And most employers would say, well, it's a lack of compensation, it's a lack of life work balance, or they quit because they just need more money, they need more time. But the two main factors that most employees identified was number one, not feeling valued,
Mm.
and number two, not having a sense of belonging. So both of those things point to culture.
Yeah. Well, and I love the fact that we were talking about value and belonging because everyone who leads someone has the opportunity to create value in their life. And the challenge is it's not one size fits all. So, what value looks like for one person is very different than what it looks like for someone else. And so that means we have to roll up our sleeves and actually understand what that means. And I want to kind of underscore this word you use, but I want to we want to better define it than what might be out there. You talk a lot about culture of honor. And I know that in the church world, that can be a bad word. But you think about honor differently because it's not just honor up, honor up. You talk about it in a way that we should all honor one another, no matter what position we hold within work, within society, within a building. You talk about it way differently than maybe some of what we might see on social media, where people are heralded for having that, but not. It doesn't necessarily always mean it's a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, we are the main carriers of culture, but we aren't the only carriers of culture. And by that, I mean your culture in any organization is created by what you promote, the things that you focus on, the things that you say, and also what you permit, the things that you don't pay attention to. And we discovered very early on that one of the things that creates undercurrent is a lack of honor.
Yeah.
And in fact, my husband and I came home from a trip, and the Lord said to us, you need to restore the sense of family in your organization, in your staff. And we had about 100 people at that time. And I didn't know what that meant. And we began to ask some questions. And I discovered that we were about to lose three amazing team players, all because of one person. We did some further digging. And here's what we learned. This particular person really excelled at honoring up. In fact, they had been trained as an officer in the Navy. So they knew how to honor up. They didn't know how to honor peer to peer.
Yeah.
They certainly didn't know how to honor or even see the need to honor down.
Right.
And so here's what happens. You can have somebody working for a leader, and do not think that just because you have an incredible experience with that person who's answering to you doesn't automatically mean that everyone below them or those who are working with them have that same experience. And this was the case with this individual. So we discovered this undercurrent. And what will happen is if you have a leader in place who's somewhat toxic in their leadership, that people who will operate underneath them have encounters, and after a while, they'll just make the choice because they keep bumping their heads. This
Yeah.
leader is a lid.
Yeah.
And those encounters are negative. So then what they'll do is just fly under the radar. But guess what? If they're leaders, they want to lead.
Yeah.
And so they will feel stifled in that type of an environment, and they won't stay. They'll vote with their feet. And guess what? You may never know it. And so this is the importance of asking questions. And as we did, we had to get rid of that leader.
Yeah.
Because here's what I understand about honor. I don't honor positionally. I honor because I'm a person of honor. So that means I give honor to you whether you are living on the street or living in the White House. There is an expression that honor that exudes from my understanding. Again, humility, right?
Yes.
You can't honor if you don't carry humility. And out of that, then you get rid of the undercurtain, because it's understood that we are honoring of one another. We are appreciative, and it creates such a sense of liberty and freedom when you have that in your culture.
Wow. This is so important because I think that, if we think about it, and maybe we even have a face in mind, and we say, well, I honor about 95% of the people I work with, but there's that one person that always gives me a hard time. And if I'm honest, I don't honor them. Well, being a person of honor is even honoring people who don't deserve the honor. It's honoring someone before they deserve that honor. And so it's a different lens, it's a different way of thinking about things. But when you're honorable, your reputation will precede you. And I can remember many situations where in the past I might have had a tough time with a coworker, but I tried my best to honor them. And even when given the opportunity to say something, really mean or rude or whatever, they chose to honor me back, even though maybe we didn't see eye to eye. And so sometimes when we become a person of honor, the Bible talks all the time about sowing and reaping, right? Our mouth sows and reaps constantly. And so what we're sowing into the ground through how we speak and through how we speak about people when they're not in the room determines what we reap in our life. And so I'm going to quote your husband here and say, if you don't like what you're reaping, why don't you look at what you're sowing?
100%,
Yeah.
over and over every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, here's the thing is that we can't afford not to believe in people. The Bible tells us in 1 Corinthians 13, be ever ready to believe the best. And so there is sort of this position, even if somebody is acting up, understand, don't take it personal. What is underneath of that? Because love seeks to understand. And so that means if you're irritable to me, then I'm going to think, okay, there's something underneath it. I'm going to be willing to give you the benefit of the doubt that you can change, first of all. And you have nothing to lose. That's not naivete. That's faith.
Yeah.
And so we have to understand that so that we are positioning our heads right about the people that we lead, the people that we work with. And, I kind of like the challenge of winning people over.
Yeah.
I think that it's actually the best way to think about it. And so the Bible also tells us that when we treat people, this is why Jesus says, pray for those who despitefully use you and persecute you. In other words, he's giving us the way to victory. And so we don't lose when we stand on the side of God and act the way he tells us to act.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you, I could give you story after story of people that I've had difficulty with, and whether they were managing above me or below me, and just being determined, I'm going to treat you with kindness. And in fact, the scripture does tell us that when we do this, it does something to their conscience.
That's right.
And they can find themselves changing the way they feel about you because you've sown and sown and sown into their life.
Yeah. That's so good. And, I think a lot about vision. A lot of what you're talking about here is, what is the vision that I want to outlive my legacy, my life? What do I want people to know me for? Well, after I'm in that workspace, well, after I'm, moved on to do something else, how do I want people to see me and think about me and know me? And, here's what I have found over the years. The world is very big and also very small. And so if we choose to dishonor someone knowingly, chances are we're going to run back into them later in life, and we're going to be forced to deal with that situation we wouldn't deal with. So one, it teaches us that we should always be actively dealing with challenges, actively honoring people, even through having hard conversations. But then in addition to that, I think about the vision of how do you rally a team towards a common vision? So people come in with all these different visions for what they're trying to accomplish, and we're trying to rally them towards a common vision. I'd love to know some of the ways that you guys did that, because I think you do a great job of creating and keeping a vision in front of you.
You know, it's interesting. It's not uncommon for you to walk into a place of business or at least back into the employee area and the vision, it's in the lunchroom.
Yeah.
The vision is on the wall. The question is, how do you get it from the wall to the heart?
Yeah.
And so Habakkuk 2:2 talks about write the vision, make it plain. In other words, you need to make it attainable that he may run who reads it. So it's almost like there should be this almost visceral response to the vision. And so the vision isn't just about us. The vision is about them. In fact, I would venture to say from this passage that it's almost more about them. And they can run with the vision when they can connect to it. And the way they connect to it is they see themselves in it. They see their value. They see their contribution. They make that connection.
Yeah.
And so to me, what vision serves is that it tells us the why behind the what.
Yes.
You know, and people are used to being task driven.
Yeah.
And, you know, but that's not the way you get vision in. That's not the way you increase productivity.
Yeah.
Because you can give somebody a task and you can, you know, this is the task, this is the deadline, this is the expectation. You're lighting a fire underneath them. But vision ignites the fire within, because that fire underneath is going to go out, but the vision lights the fire in. So you don't engage a heart with task. Right. You engage a heart with vision. Wow. And what vision does is it says, this is your task, but this is the value of what you are adding. That's helping them to make the connection. And, you know, because vision is only as strong as it is deep. And so we're looking to find a way and a place to connect with the vision with them, communicate the vision in such a way that they connect with it.
Wow. I'm a big vision, mission, values junkie, and I really do believe that it sets the direction and it orients kind of how people want to live and how they want to show up. And, you know, when I think about vision, mission, and values, I see vision, like you said, it's the true north. It's where are we headed in the long term.
Yes.
And then your mission is like, what are we doing today to accomplish that vision? And your mission can change over time, because as you accomplish that mission, you start to make your mission broader and bigger as you move closer and closer to your vision. But what I love about values is values actually set the rules for the road. So they tell us how to behave. They tell us what is acceptable and unacceptable in an environment. And I always say hire and fire by the values, right? So we're going to hire people by the values. And when someone's violating our values, that's our moment to release them. And so often, you know, it is just things on a wall. It's not things we're actually living out and believing and walking in. And so the idea of making the vision plain and writing it down, it also means that you're asking people to be ambassadors of that vision and begin to run with that vision, run with the mission, run with the values. And what I love about it, when done right, you don't need to micromanage them, because we're all pointing back to the same vision, mission, and values in order to understand what success looks like. And so I just love that we're talking about this, because that is the foundation of how you set culture.
And you know, the beautiful thing is, this is the bonus of vision. It's going to draw the right people. It's like the needle in the haystack, and all you need is a magnet. Vision has a way of people will jump to the opportunity. Okay, it has a means of vetting. You are going to identify your leaders and how they respond to the vision. You're going to find out if someone is a fit or not. And this helps us when it comes to promotion and things of that nature. So the other bonus is actually it's a means of vetting, because sometimes the vision will actually repel the right people. And
that's so important. You said visceral. Like people have a visceral response, and that is exactly what you want. If someone just reads that and they're like, okay, you haven't inspired them either towards the excitement or towards the that's not me, and I need to go a different direction. So I love what you're saying by visceral, because it really forces us to understand that people need to react to what you're doing, and it causes that current to move. It
does. And you know what? Because you do your part in the way that you communicate, and if they're not responding to it, then you've determined, okay, they're not a right fit. And it leaves room for somebody that is the right fit.
Yes, that's right. They're taking a space of someone who could be in there
That's
excited and ready
exactly
for the
right.
mission ahead. Okay, so my last question is this. I want to make this extremely practical, right? We're living in a time where leaders are constantly navigating uncertainty and change. I mean, it is really the mainstay.
It is.
What is some things that they can do almost to create weekly, or let's call it biweekly, stability and security within their teams?
So let's go back to the reason that were the two reasons that
Mhm.
Mackenzie identified why people leave.
Yes.
That sense of value.
Hmm.
Okay, so and that sense of being connected. So
Yeah.
we've identified the connection. So value, if you think about it, how do you communicate value other than compensating with a
Hmm.
salary?
Yeah.
I think the way that we chose to do it was we treated everyone like a leader. And so we would have
Yeah.
several opportunities throughout the year where we would bring in a leader and we would bring everybody from managers to maintenance and
Mhm.
we would raise their leadership level. We invested in them. And I even had someone I had a conversation with who, it wasn't unusual for other churches to come in and shop our staff. That wasn't unusual. And so I remember having a conversation with someone who I found out that they had just gotten a pretty interesting offer, pretty interesting salary, and yet they chose to turn it down. And so I'm
Mm,
curious. I'm like, okay, we have to have a
yeah.
conversation. So why did you choose to stay? Why did you turn this down? Because that was a good opportunity. And he said, you know what? I always feel like I belong here. I always feel like you care for me. And, you guys keep stretching us. You keep bringing
Mhm.
me up.
Mhm.
And so why would I want to leave that? Now, that just speaks right
Yeah.
to what Mackenzie identified. So if it is if we talk about a culture and a culture of caring, one of the ways it's communicated is that I'm constantly believing in you and raising you up. So I'm not just adding to your skill set about your specific job. Then
Yeah.
I get the personal
Yeah.
benefit of that. I'm talking about just adding value to you as an individual. How do I raise you up?
Mhm.
And so this is one of the things that if an organization chooses to invest in their employees in this way, whether how large or how small, how can I raise them up? Then that's communicating value to them. And it's also going to affect your bottom line in a very positive way.
That's right. Yeah, we can't underestimate what it means to invest and pour into people. I can think back to my first manager who always made me leave his office with a book and then always had me follow up once I had read a few chapters so we could discuss it. And not only did that create a love of learning for me, it also created this understanding that if I will invest in reading and curiosity and understanding and having these good conversations, that it will actually level up my leadership along the way. So oftentimes, we want to just give people the answer, but there's something really powerful about pouring into them and investing into them so that they can begin to answer those questions for themselves. And that's how you know the mark of a good leader. And that's how you become a good leader, is by making sure you're not always just providing the answer, but you're actually enabling people to answer the hard questions for themselves.
Well, and it creates this beautiful balance because most of the time when employees come to work, you're asking of them.
Yeah.
And it balances out the ask with now I'm adding.
Hmm.
And so those are the kinds of things that people might not be able to put their finger on. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they have that sense of, wow, I'm growing here. They're
Yes.
contributing to me
Love
as
that.
well. And so I think, again, I don't care how large or how small our
Hmm.
organization is, we need to think as leaders, how can I contribute to them without just asking? And I know I'm paying them,
Hmm.
but there's something on a personal level
Yeah.
that's meaningful to them. And we shouldn't miss that because that's what creates longevity. And that's how you get to keep the talent.
Well, thank you. This was an awesome 100th episode of Thrive Today.
100.
And I'm looking forward to the next 100 conversations, next 100 leaders that we're going to be bringing in to speak to you about topics just like these. So, how do we think about Thrive Today more broadly, even our next 100 episodes and the vision that we have ahead for ourselves as a platform?
Well, I have to go back to the early days when I was doing the focus groups. And one of the things that many of you are telling me is that, you know what I want? I don't want big meetings. What I want is community. I want a safe space. I want to have a place where I can be around like-minded leaders. And so this is what we've been endeavoring to create. And I think it's even more important now today than ever. So, one of the ways we've created that is through our coaching calls. And so, we invite you to partake of a membership that's going to give you a monthly touch point. And what I love about our coaching calls, it's not one talking head just driving the information at you. It's an opportunity for us to sit down at lunch and have a conversation. And so, it's a highly interactive experience, even though we're doing it remote.
Yeah.
And so, these are the kind of things you can help us find ways that to create community in a way that's valuable and meaningful to you. So your participation, you coming in and saying, this is what I need, this is what is important to me, this is what would add value to me. That's how we started out with the focus groups. I want to continue that conversation and find better ways to serve you. We do have some things in store we're going to be doing in the beginning of the year, and it will involve us doing some intensives and things of that nature. That's one of the things that I've heard from the feedback, but I got to tell you how much your feedback means to me. Whether it's positive or negative, it's helpful. So we're trying to curate something that is actually beneficial to you and meaningful to you. So you can help us do that by sharing that information with us.
Awesome. We want you to head over to thrivetoday.com to learn more. That's where you can find all these incredible resources, thrivetoday.com. Head over there and connect with us. We can't wait to see you there. And ladies, we'll see you next time. Don't forget to thrive.